Greetings! This is I, Titus Naravan Dracovin, your Lord and Emperor here at the Dracovin Empire, and welcome once more to the world of darkness. I hope you're having a wonderful day and ready to dive in, because we're, once again, not only in the world of darkness, but visiting the world of Mage The Ascension. We'll be talking about the Dreamspeakers today. So if you're joining me, of course, live on Twitch over there, say hi over on Twitch, or later on YouTube, hi YouTube, always glad to have you. You guys remember to like, comment, ring the bell, all that great stuff, and make sure you're subscribed. Today, my question, of course, is related to our topic, Dreamspeakers, or as they're known in the 20th anniversary, Kavadi. Have you played one before? That's the question. Because certainly, I can not recall if I've had anybody in one of my games that has, or in a game I've played of Mage, played one, but I haven't done a lot of Mage and remember all the other characters in the game, so maybe. You like to start at a very simple place, and that's where you can do additional research and also research on, well, mechanically playing a Dreamspeaker. Because certainly speaking, I'm going to give you information on the aspects of it. But mechanically, you probably want to start with the Dreamspeaker Tradition book. It's going to give an even deeper look into it than I am. And then, of course, and I've got some interesting pictures for this one. The Dreamspeaker, so there's the Dreamspeaker Tradition book and the Tradition book Dreamspeaker, and they're two different books. It's where Tradition book is placed in the order of the name. I didn't name these things, okay? Also, Mage The Ascension, the revised edition, is a great place to look into it. And, of course, the 20th anniversary edition for your most modern, up-to-date information. Where to start with the Dreamspeakers? That's a good question. So, the thing is, they are a group of individual mages who practice shamanism. They commune with spirits as part of magic, and they see themselves as an intermediary between the mortal world and the spiritual world. It is a very diverse tradition, and it represents a lot of other ancient cultures. Ones from Africa and North America, the Inuit Aboriginal Australians, along with some practitioners of Shinto, some independent spirit savants, and descendants of many forgotten tribes and civilizations. This group, though, was originally shoehorned together by a lot of Eurocentric traditions. We'll talk about that with their history. But these disparate cultures have actually found some common ground over the years that they've been together, and their respect and dedication for this balance that they maintain between the spiritual and physical makes them be able to find this balance with each other. Now, as of late, of course, the gauntlet has grown thicker. It's become more dangerous. We've talked about the great events that's happened in the late 1990s into the 2000s, and it's made the Kavadis, the shamans' duties more difficult, more harder. And a lot of other mages, though, still overlook matters of spirit, and sleepers forget about it altogether. But these Dreamspeakers, these members of this group, were born to walk these middle grounds. They see and hear what others do not, and fill a role that they still believe is very much needed in the modern world. And that is what it means to be a Kavadi, a Dreamspeaker. Now, we do have to talk about an important part of them. The Partagram. Their practice. Animism is a very essential part of that Dreamspeaker philosophy and magic. As in fact, it tends to reflect their daily lives. As shamans, they possess the ability to freely interact with the spirit world to one degree or another, and are often called to resolve conflicts between spirits or seek solutions to problems that can be felt in the material and spiritual reality. Dreamspeakers realize that each reflects the other, spirit and material, and that by acting upon the spirit world they can perform feats that are considered magic in the material world. This can take the form of direct communication with spirits capable of making the desired changes, just as often makes use of understanding the spirit's behavior, or rules that know the rituals and act upon the material world. and will evoke appropriate responses in the spiritual world. So this important maintenance of understanding. Now for tools and practices you might do, it is important for shamanic magic, for the magic of the Dreamspeakers, to place oneself in the correct state of mind, to be able to perceive and influence the boundary between the spiritual and the material. Anything that helps you reach this aesthetic state of consciousness can serve as a focus. These can include things like drugs, exercise, music, dance, simple meditation. There are some in amongst the Dreamspeakers that see external tools as a crutch to be avoided, or that artificially manufactured drugs and technology devices are counterproductive. But all of that is personal preference. It comes down to how you believe your connection to the spiritual world can be invoked. And when it comes to invoking spirits, as long as it grants you personally that connection and power over spirits and questions, whether it's a symbol, a crafted representation, a name, a word of power, a ritual, whatever it may be, that it is important to you. And Dreamspeakers are cognizant of the fact that every tool has a spirit of its own that can be called upon to aid their magic. So not only are they calling upon these spirits, the tools they're using can call upon these spirits. So you can see it's a interconnected kind of reality. Now, as I said, we do have to talk history. And unlike a lot of other traditions, there is, and this is the symbol for the Dream-Speakers, not the Dreamspeakers, or as they're known now, the Kavadi. Unlike a lot of other traditions that end up having some kind of common cosmology or explanation for their origin beyond the grand convocation, there is none for Dreamspeakers. They're descendants of numerous diverse societies from around the world that were basically forced together because outsiders didn't understand them. Each has their own stories of the world's beginning. They have tales that they've shared where reality is fluid. There's little distinction between the material and spirit. Some speak of pure ones, of gods, of totem spirits that tended and guided the first humans. And regardless, though, of these stories, when we come to today, many Dreamspeakers say likely they were all true in some kind of way. And the Dreamspeakers, who they really are, the Shamans, served as communities, their communities as connections to these things in ancient times. Intermediaries between the spirits and the worlds, and learned the cycles, and passed on this cultural knowledges to the new ages that dawned and set before. As a group, though, we do see their official formation in 1466 in that grand convocation. The two that were at the heart of it were Niobe, an African dream priestess, and Star of Eagle, a Powhatan medicine man. They saw the tradition as a brotherhood of shamans. Europeans saw it as a dumping ground for tribal magic. Native Americans from North and South America, tribes of African jungles and savannas, Australian Aboriginals, Lappish and Siberian shamans, the Kahuna of Hawaii, Maori and Polynesians were all lumped together in this single tradition. Some magi, like the Ngoma, saw this as what it really was, a level of racism, and they left the convention in the convocation in disgust. They became part of the Disparate Alliance. I can talk about them later on a little bit more, but I've talked about the Disparate Alliance. There was some misunderstanding, antagonism between these various cultural groups. But dedication and a love between Niobe and Star of Eagle served as an example of their shared values. The two assumed joint leadership of this new tradition and continued until Niobe was assassinated by an offender. But rather than break this tradition, the pain of her death only bound these groups together in a tighter unity and allowed them to form into a proper tradition that they are today. So the love between an African dream princess and a Powhatan medicine man basically, and some hard work, allowed this to form into what it is today. This is unfortunately not the end of this story. This is the Victorian Age symbol of Dreamspeakers. They suffered greatly in the Age of Discovery. And centuries of colonialism, imperialism, Spanish conquest decimated the Aztecs and the Incas, spread smallpox among the mound builders, Portuguese slave traders decimated the South Africa. Missionaries, both from sleepers and from the Celestial Chorus, attempted to convert native peoples to European culture and religion. The world was mapped, charted by explorers and scientists. Lands connected to the spirit world became fewer, and more of reality became static. Dreamspeakers also called upon the other traditions for aid during this time. And they did receive some expressions of support from the Cult of Ecstasy, the Thanatoi, and the Verbena, but the Council, the people that they were a member of as a whole, did nothing. Finally, in 1756, about half of the Dreamspeakers from Horizon walked out, led by a delegation of Iroquois medicine man. Those that remained did so out of the belief that the cause that they were having was lost, and the native people could only return if the Dreamspeakers survived as a tradition long enough for others to see their errors. But perhaps that is something that happened. Because we go through the Industrial Revolution, the rise of capitalism, communism, which did degrade humanity's connections to the spirit and damage the earth more. But in the second half of the 20th century, a tide turned for shamans. Renewed interest in philosophies and practices of non-Western societies has made traditional garb, ceremonies, and belief of Dreamspeakers culturally acceptable. Meditation, spirit guides, shamanic healing have become more trendy, and perhaps more importantly, the Dreamspeakers have increasingly recognized that the modern spirits of electricity, information, plastic, and cities are just as realistic and legitimate and needing of mediums as those of the natural world. Remember, tools have spirits, so heck, the modern world has spirits too. So we now have urban and techno shamans that are on the rise and are fighting to find a place in the tradition. So, still that resurgence of the ancient spiritualism a lot, combined with modern spiritualism that is what we have in modern Dreamspeakers. An interesting juxtaposition now with this group that are connected to cultures that have been devastated over the centuries. Now, most Dreamspeakers tend to be solitary. They tend to view the others with a tradition as kind of extended family. You're my, cousin's cousin or something like that, or my cousin twice removed. Well, there isn't really major organizations. Many have conflicting customs due to different upbringings, but there is some common bond that keep them together. A lot of the tradition has received centuries of persecution from around the world. And their supposed allies in the Council of Nine haven't done very well or helped the persecution. So the leaders of the Dreamspeakers learn that they must present a unified front if they are to protect their interests. So once a year, the majority of Dreamspeakers gather, either physically or spiritually, in the Nevada desert to share news, discuss positions for the tradition to take as a whole. Any member can speak, though elders of this group are given the greatest deference. There are also several shame trees where the old ways are preserved in peace. The Turtle Council House, the Dreamspeaker subrealm in Horizon, is one such place combining Native American, African, and Australian subrealms. There's a prominent Dreamspeaker holding in the Lodge of the Grey Squirrel, a Native American sanctuary. Valley Shilar, a lost Mayan temple in the jungles of Peru, shared with the Ashkitic Brotherhood. I'm going to butcher this one. I'm butchering all these names, but I'm going to butcher this one the most. Yambula Kino, a lush jungle realm used by the Bauri to teach African culture. Onikari, the Cherokee Lodge near Asheville, North Carolina, watched over by Uptenagaru. So the Uptenagaru get along with these mages. And the Nija Panda, a multicultural realm created by the Keepers of Sacred Flame to preserve their homeland. Now we should talk about the major groups within here, because again, remember, they're a fairly disparate group of people that were just kind of shoved together, so there is different voices that are the major ones. The Paloma are descendants of shape-shifting warrior priests of the Mayans. Thanks, Motorcycle. They continue to practice bloody sacrifices to ancestors, practicing totemic magic, often adapting the shape of jaguars, but they're also skilled at astrological divination, and use hallucinogens and bloodletting to contact Zabalba, the spirit world. Some Paloma have immigrated to the United States. Most remains in the jungles of Mexico and Guatemala to protect their people, even affiliating with Zapatista militants. They were only recently recruited by fellow Native Americans among the Dreamspeakers who traveled to Mexico to study the lost magics of the Aztecs, Mayans, and Mesoamericans. So the Balom are basically a very new member, but they are prominent because they stand out. The Baruti, originating from Africa, I mentioned them, are wandering storytellers and performers. They memorize, preserve, and teach, and often mutually contradictory oral tradition of hundreds of different cultures, including those believed lost to history. When two Baruti meet, they often exchange tales. Baruti also maintain old ties with the Ashu Kith. In more modern times, some have turned to writing science fiction, horror, fantasy, comic books, or even ethnographies. Their magic revolves around storytelling. Legends of heroes can inspire the masses, while myths of creation tap into primal sources of power and rouse the spirits of the elements themselves. The contraries began as societies of sacred clowns among the Indians, the Native Americans of the Great Plains. Again, Native Americans of the Great Plains and Southwest, following Coyote, Raven, and other trickster spirits. I really love how sometimes language, when you read it, doesn't correct it, The contrary way of is much a lifestyle as a magical faction. Members do everything backwards, dress as members of the opposite sex, seek as opposite of their intentions. By challenging expectations, they bring laughter into the world and teach others through their comical behavior. Other Dreamspeakers are divided in their opinion of this faction. Some admire their dedication, while just as many view them as misguided at best and outright lunatics at worst. The Four Winds, or members of the Four Winds Society, spend much of their time exploring the spirit world. They have little value on material possessions, instead trading secrets for secrets. Most eventually adopt spiritual landscapes that suit their personality and tune themselves, effectively becoming guardian spirits. Over time, they even forget their moral lives altogether. This is likely the fate of the entire faction after the appearance of the Avatar Storm. So, Avatar Storm happened because of the members and their disconnection. Most of them are probably already, guardian spirits. Some might remain connected to mortality. Hard to say. The Ghost Wheel Society are urban techno shaman who commute with modern elementals of plastic, glass, metal, electricity. They were born out of the Ghost Dance movement. The Ghost Wheel Society believes that the old ways are dead and they must adapt to the modern world. Bohemians, entertainers, and con artists members often operate alongside the wall. The magic tends to involve negotiating between various urban spirits, trading favors, and creating high-tech fetishes. Now, we are only about halfway done, but we have more to talk about, so let's talk about the Independents. They are Dreamspeakers who have awakened often traumatically without being trained by another mage. Some were taught entirely by inhuman totems, while a few are guided by disreputable spirits that want to use them as pawns. Some degree of madness has been common among Independents, but they tend to be far more stable than Marauders. Because they often come from cultures without a tradition of shamanism, they tend to improvise their magic haphazardly using pain, drugs, music to enter trance states. What separates them from orphans is that Independents eventually seek out other Dreamspeakers, either on their own, at the urging of their spirit. So basically, orphans who could be just magic users for anything. Independents are a little different because they are aiming to become Dreamspeakers. They're people that are connected to the spirit world. They want to connect with the people that would know that. The Keepers of Sacred Fire are one of the most visible factions within the Dreamspeakers. They focus on preserving as much of their cultural tradition as they can, even when battling against invaders or foreign influence has already been lost. They accept that societies change, but believe there's wisdom in people's history and stories. Keeper magic is highly traditional and well-defined, and most spend many years learning from an elder practitioner. The Kopaloi are native mages of Hawaii. They once made up the largest and most organized faction in Polynesia. The numbers include both kahuna and alii chieftains, as well as commoners skilled in navigation and travel magics. Their ties to the gods and sacred man of their homeland was legendary, and some are said to maintain ties with Rokia or Menpue. While they have fought for native sovereignty, by the late 20th century, many Kopaloi realized that the only way to preserve their magic was to join the shamans of the Dreamspeaker tradition, and they brought an expensive knowledge of the spirits in South Pacific. So basically, they were independent for a very long time. It's of recent that they've joined with, they kind of somewhat joined up. There are still some members that are part of the disparate alliance, but some have joined the Dreamspeakers. So, again, it's a breakdown of the group a little bit, but yeah. The Red Spear Society are aggressive warriors who believe that spirits are angered by the modern world. They're eco-terrorists, conditioned rights activists. Their raids seek to reclaim tribal lands, artifacts, and heritage. Unlike other Dreamspeakers, they're highly organized in the hierarchical society of single leader. Shihika are an all-female faction. They serve as wise wisdoms to the nomadic Bedouin and Berber tribes of Arabia, Egypt, and North Africa. As soothsayers, healers, and exorcists, their magic helps their tribes survive the harsh desert environments of their homeland. A Muslim sect, the Shika, are members of the Web of Faith and still maintain contact with Aliyah Batin and the other Middle Eastern groups. At one point, a Shika delegation even invited the lost Hemka Sobek to join the Council of Nine. In recent years, the Shika have become concerned with the efforts of Saudi Arabia and other governments of the region to forcibly settle their tribes. The Solitaries are hermits that eschew many of the trappings of humanity, retreat to the wilderness to practice their magic in solitude. Their magics tend to be slower but more powerful, following the cycles of nature. Some transform their bodies so they can survive in the depths of the deep seas. Others adopt animals as their new tribe, following the same totems that guide wild beasts. Dreamspeakers of other actions respect Solitaries for their deep wisdom, but worry about their non-human outlooks. Go on. The Spirit Smiths, from, I'm gonna really butcher this one, Van Monian and Ilmarinen, in the Finnish Kabbalic epic to modern techno-shaman. There's always been a mystical link between shamans and smiths. Spirit ships exemplify this link, crafting some of the most powerful and exquisite fetishes known to Dreamspeakers. Members of the faction are comfortable with high-tech devices, and many work on commission. Spirit smiths are greatly admire well-crafted tools and will go out of their way not to destroy them unless they're absolutely corrupt. Most instead prefer to liberate such items from unfit users and instead give them to someone who views them as more responsible. Apologies for all that, what I said there. God. They are, yes. Anyway, the last one to talk about today, one of the groups, is Uzoma, one of the largest Dreamspeaker factions in Africa. They are part of traditional peace and diviners of the Yoruba people. Each Uzoma follows particular Orisha as their patron. As intermediaries between humans and the spirit world, the Zoma serve as soothsayers, advisors, and healers. They're invited to the Grand Convocation by Niobe, but returned to their homeland after her murder and avoided contact with non-African mages. Many forgot they were even members. Only after the events of the Reckoning have they decided to return to the traditions. In recent years, the increasing number of Uzoma have left Nigeria to live amongst immigrant communities in America and Europe. So they've spread to other communities too, also. So yes. Reckoning being with the 6th grade Maelstrom and all the other stuff that happened. So This drove them. They were technically part of the tradition, but, you know, didn't really talk to anybody outside African mages until the 2000s. But there you go. Hey! Those are a lot of the mage... Now, these aren't all the groups. Again, the fact is that the Dreamspeakers, the Kavadi, are very desperate in a lot of ways. Even some of their groups. Some of them are also part of the Desperate Alliance because they're split. It's a thing that European-centric racism drove them together as a group. And love basically made them one. It's an interesting fact. And that love and a tragedy drove this group together. They don't see eye to eye. They don't agree on everything. They all understand they represent the same thing, regardless of their beliefs. And they seek to maintain a unified front. That is important to them. This unified front. Though, really, it's very individualistic. And, yes, I've talked about these different groups, but even these different groups are just kind of cultural groups of Dreamspeakers. The exact way they practice, the exact way they do things are to more the individual still. If I'm still a member of the Lomba, or the Four Winds, or the Copa Loe, yes, I'm going to have something similar about myself to other members of the group. I'm still more independent than anything. And again, it's that idea of like, hey, we're all part of this big old family together that's sort of there. You're those relatives that I don't speak about, you know, until I see it like big holidays. In this case, it's a once-a-year meeting that everybody kind of shows up for. It's just so interesting that they are seen in such a way because they put a front forward of unification. It's not really that unified, it's just sort of there. But they try. They try to put this front forward. They try to look as if they are together as one. And it works most of the time. And this commonality of what their goal is, what their job is as mages, and as members of both the traditions and the world, and representatives of each of their own cultures, is something they share. They are shamans, one and all. What that term means for their culture, it's different. But they are shamans of their cultures. And they believe in those connections. And the maintenance between the spirit world and material world. And because of that, they can work together for one common front. Even if everything about every single one of them may be different. It is a miracle of unity and an understanding of what it means for their practices and what their role is in the world. This basically strength of will is incredibly impressive for such a distant group. I'll leave it here today. Dreamspeakers are really cool, kind of interesting. I really enjoy that they built something out of, well, misunderstanding, racisms, and just throwing everything else together. Throwing a group that looks similar together. They were like, yeah, we look similar, but we're gonna make something out of this. You might not think about it, but we will make something out of this and make something strong. If you want to see more of my stuff, of course, you can always check out other times where I go live on Twitch and later upload it up on YouTube. The time for live is Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. There's usually World of Darkness Day, usually mid-afternoon, early to mid-afternoon. Saturday's bonus day, if I miss one of those days. Wednesdays, 9 p.m. EST. Crimson Queen. Live play Pathfinder First Edition. That's my current only live play show as of the time of this stream. Make sure to check that one out. But I've got some older ones, like the movie World of Darkness series you can watch. Saturdays, 6 p.m. discussing tabletop. Tabletop News of the Week, we talk about dive into deeper discussion topics that involve all kinds of role-playing games. I really would recommend checking that out. And even if you're not in for the news, the discussion is good. Social media link below, Discord, Twitter. Of course, all the tabletop stuff goes up on YouTube, so you don't have to catch me live. You can always continue to watch. We're on YouTube. It'll usually be uploaded a couple days after I had streamed it live. Though it depends on the schedule. You know, sometimes I miss days. Try to keep a relative schedule. Other game stuff I do also. You know, if you want to do sometimes with friends even. Yeah, that's it for today then. So I'm going to say, everyone out there, have a great day. I hope you enjoyed learning all about this. And until the next time we talk about the world of darkness, Mage The Ascension, or any tabletop role-playing, I bid you a deep and wonderful farewell.